drum roll, please, because this is the main event. This is the pinnacle of flowering plants. There is no other plant in my collection that comes close to this. It's just so unique, it's so different, and it's none other than my... Let's talk about some flowering plants. I've gone through my entire plant collection and I've picked out every single plant that has either just come out of flowering or about to go into them. Some of these plants have actually never flowered for me. So the fact that I can actually look at them now and appreciate them is a big, big win for me. And I want to show them to you as well. What is up, guys? My name is Lithius and welcome to Roots Ready. The first plant we're going to talk about is this one right here. This is my Hoya Obovata, a plant that I recently spoke about on my channel, where I talked about the battle that I had with root mealybugs and how I saved this plant. So go check out that video if you want to hear more about that. So the fact that this plant has overcome that battle and is now producing these gorgeous, gorgeous blooms is a massive, massive win for me. Look at that. I've had Hoya bloom for me in the past, but this is the very, very first time that this Hoya Obovata has ever bloomed. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous pink, that delicate pink on the flower petals there, and that deep, almost lilac deep pink on the actual, I'm not sure what those are called, but gosh, is it not gorgeous. I just wanted to give it a quick little sniff to see if it had a scent, and at the moment I can't smell anything. Usually in the daytime, the Hoyas don't produce any smells, mine certainly don't, but at night there's like a certain time when the clock hits and the room just explodes in a fragrance. So I don't think this has any smell right now, but I'll double check tonight and see what happens. I've been keeping a really, really close eye on these blooms because I saw that they were coming in and I wasn't sure when they were going to open, because the Hoya, 1 second they're closed and the next second they're open, so you got to be really, really quick, and they don't last that long as well. So that's it's quite sad because it comes in and it goes so quickly, so fleeting. It's a real shame that they don't last a lot longer, especially when they're gorgeous as this. I've also noticed though that we have a couple of other peduncles. If I get rid of that leaf, like right here where my finger is, that's a peduncle here, and there's also a peduncle back there. So at the moment it looks like we have 3 peduncles, maybe 4. I think this little edge here, right here, is another peduncle. So that's a really, really good sign to me, because as I said, this plant, it wasn't looking the best. We've had a battle, nearly lost it, managed to save it. And the fact that it's come full circle with some amazing, amazing blooms, it's just so much better. It makes it so much sweeter, that victory, to see this. And this is the very first Hoya that I'm going to talk about, the Hoya Obovata. Just take another look at these gorgeous, gorgeous flowers. The other Hoya that I want to talk about is this one right here. This is my Hoya Krinkle 8, and it is a prolific bloomer. Every year without fail, this plant produces several blooms, and sometimes on the same peduncle we might produce 3 or 4 blooms in that same year, which is just amazing. And this year is no different. Look at that. You can see the first bloom over here. This one was the first one to open up, so I'm sure I've got maybe another couple of days to enjoy that before they start to fall off as well. But not only that, we have so many more that are emerging. Like for example, we've got this one back here, this one back here where my thumb is. That one is coming, it's not open yet, but we have so many more. Look at that. We have this one down here. We have another open one down here. Look at that. That is lovely. And several other peduncles around this plant. This plant, it just never fails to disappoint. It is big and bushy and gorgeous and lush, and it's just so reliable when it comes to producing blooms. I've said this before, but my only thing about this plant is I'm not a huge fan of the smell of the blooms. To me, it has a bit of an oily, slightly manure-ish kind of fragrance to it. So for me, it's not the best. So sometimes, as I said, with the Obovata, at night there's just a certain point where this room just explodes in the fragrance of the Krinkle 8. Some people don't mind it. My other flatmates, they certainly don't. They quite like the smell. For me, it's just a little bit too much, but it's not so much that I hate this plant or I hate the smells or I hate the bloom. I actually quite enjoy it when it comes through, because I know, okay, that's a good sign that the plant is living life. It's enjoying itself, which is really, really good. But as with all Hoyas, the blooms don't last long. So I was very limited in the amount of time I have to come on here and show you these blooms before they fall off in a matter of days, I'm sure. But the Hoya Krinkle 8 is just, if I have to do this video every year, this plant is always going to feature on it, because honestly, it's just so good at blooming, and it does it so spectacularly. One of the things I really love about the Krinkle 8 blooms is that it almost looks like a little tennis ball of blooms here, and it's just so cool. I've never had it where it's completely sort of engulfed. It's a complete sphere, but it's always like a half sphere, and it's just so gorgeous, so lovely to have. The Hoya Krinkle 8. The next section we're going to talk about are my peace lilies. This one in particular is my variegated peace lily, also known as the domino peace lily, I believe. And this one, as I've shown you before, has some amazing inflorescence that are coming in. I want to say that this year is the first year that I've actually had inflorescence on my domino peace lily, because I can't recall if it did before. I remember when I got it, it was just leaves, and it took a while to actually produce any flowers. And yeah, now it's done so, and it looks amazing. I can even see that this one here has a gorgeous little lime green sort of streaks that run along the back. That is really, really cool to me. I think this plant is certainly enjoying whatever it is that I'm doing. As I showed you before, one of the things that I do with this plant is I place it in a little plastic container or in a plastic bag just to sort of maintain that humidity. These plants certainly don't like to dry out. And the fact that I have this one on a west facing window means it gets a lot of light, so it dries out a lot quicker. But what I find with peace lilies, just providing a little bit more light provides a lot more growth of inflorescence or flowers, which is really, really good. So you can see this is a much smaller plant, but it's quite dense in terms of the leaf to inflorescence ratio. And if I compare that to my green form, my normal peace lily, you'll see exactly what I mean. This is my standard peace lily, just a regular green form, and it's completely dense. Look at the amount of leaves. It's a massive, massive plant. I've had it for a very, very long time. And it's just such a spectacular plant. And when I first got this plant, I had it quite close to a window. So again, this plant would always have inflorescence on it. But since I've moved it a little bit further from the window, the leaf growth is still really, really good. However, the density of inflorescence, so the leaf to inflorescence growth has completely slowed. This is the third inflorescence that these plants have put out. So it had another one that's now dried off, and I cut it off yesterday, I believe, but we've only got 2 left. I'm sure if I gave this just a little bit more light, we would have so many more inflorescence to talk about and to celebrate. But you know what? I don't really mind it being just a mass of peace lily leaves. I think it looks quite cool. It's quite a statement plant. I love the way it sort of drapes over, and it's got that nice full bushy look to it. I mean, more inflorescence will definitely be welcomed with a splash of color every now and then. That's fine. I'm not too mad at it. But this is the peace lily, another wonderful blooming plant. We're getting closer and closer to the main event. There is a particular plant that I can't wait to show you, and it's looking amazing. It's looking really, really amazing. But this is the succulent section. This is the Euphorbia Milii, also known as the Euphorbia crown of thorns, and you can tell exactly why, because of those gnarly looking spikes that this plant has along its stem. You certainly don't want to get poked by that, but I mean, if you're going to get poked by something, make it something that is as gorgeous as this. Look at the lovely blooms. This again is another consistent bloomer. This thing almost always has blooms on it. I can say that for this one here, but these two, which seem to be a different species, I'm not quite sure what these ones are, and I'll have to do a bit of research. And it's mainly because it hasn't produced a bloom for me yet, so I'm not sure what I'm looking for. But if you know what this plant is, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to sort of be able to name these and potentially even move it into another or into their own pot, but for now we'll just leave it as this. But speaking specifically about this one, the crown of thorns, I mean, look at those gorgeous, gorgeous blooms. Oh my goodness, isn't that gorgeous? And it always comes in like a lovely cluster of bright red flowers. It's just so gorgeous. Among all of my cacti and succulent, this plant always stands out. Without the blooms, it's sort of something that would just blend into the background. You probably wouldn't even see it. Your eye wouldn't be drawn to it. But just that splash of color is just so, so lovely. It's almost like a contradiction, this plant, right? So you have the lovely, delicate flowers up here, and then underneath, you literally have what is like, looks like the most harsh environment, something that's so unwelcoming. We even have another bloom down here, but this one's a bit washed out. It doesn't look the best because I think it's only just coming in, and we have some more in there as well. So this plant, I think, is going to continue to bloom. It's going to continue to be an amazing plant. It really breaks up the monotony of what would otherwise be, you know, just a regular green collection of plants. So I'm really glad to have this one just paving the way for something new and different. Just so lovely. Oh, look at it. Wow. This one right here is my Astrophyllum Yeah, it doesn't look great, does it? Look at it. Oh my! Oh look, the flowers just fallen off. Look at that, just in time for the video. This is what we've got left of the Astrophyllum flower. Wow. Honestly, these things don't last very long. You can see we have another one on its way down there. That's an emerging bud, but they don't last long at all. But I was lucky enough to have started filming this plant and what the blooms look like just before it started to shrivel up and die, because I had a feeling that it wouldn't have made it to the weekend for me to make this video. So lucky that I did, but here it is. Here's this plant in all its glory. This is my newest cactus, and look at the blooms on this thing. It's so lush, so beautiful. It's actually quite large, a lot bigger than I expected it to be. This is my Gymnocalycium Stenopleurum, I think it's pronounced. But yeah, this is a real gorgeous plant, real beaut over here. Just a real lovely pop of color, that lovely pink. And we have a couple more blooms down there that could emerge at any point. What an absolute beauty. It is such a shame that these blooms don't last very long. I wish it could. I wish it could stay there forever. It's just amazing, right? You look at this again, similar to the crown of thorns. It's just it looks like a barren plant, like nothing is going to come out of it. It looks so unwelcoming. And then boom, it produces just what is an amazing, amazing bloom with such color and vigor. And it's just so, yeah, again, in contrast to what you would think a cacti flower would look like, but it's just amazing. I would love to one day be able to pollinate these flowers and produce some seeds of my own. I'm not sure how to do that yet, so that's some research that I'm going to have to do. And I'm really glad to see that we have another bloom, maybe even two. There's another little tiny one down there as well. So maybe I will be able to enjoy the blooms 2 more times this year before the plant probably starts to settle down for the winter. This is the plant that actually got into my recent haul that I did when I went over to one of the nurseries nearby to have a look at what I could bag, and I bagged it, and looks like I got it just in time to enjoy that bloom. But on the topic of Gymnocalycium, I'm going to show you another one. I have a collection of Gymnocalycium here. Not all of them are Gymnocalycium actually, but the majority are. And this one in particular, which is the Gymnocalycium Mihanovichii, I believe it is. I'll put it on the screen again. Also known as a chin cactus. This one had a spectacular bloom on it, a spectacular bloom. Again, it didn't make it to this video. It actually emerged before the other Gymnocalycium that I just showed you. That fell off, but again, we have some other blooms in the making over here, so that's good. Again, we have another 2 opportunities, it looks like, to enjoy the blooms. And this other Gymnocalycium over here, the Stellatum, I believe, again, it'll be on the screen. This one also produced a bloom, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, it started to produce it, but it never opened up. So I wasn't able to get a good photo of it. Instead, it just sort of nearly opened and then it shriveled and died. So that was a shame. I didn't really get to enjoy that one as much as I would have liked to. But we have another bloom coming in, so that's really, really good. And just as a side note, look at this one. This is my Ferocactus. It's got a new pad or new thing growing on top of it, so that's really, really cool. I thought I'd throw that in there. Why not? Why not? I think all of my Gymnocalycium are actually blooming right now, so it must be the season for it, which is really, really cool. The Haworthiopsis is another succulent that I want to show you. This one again started to produce some flowers. The flower stalk stem, I'm not really sure what it's called. They're not really a spectacular showing, but it is my first one, my very first time for this plant to produce a flower stalk or whatever it's called. So I was really excited. Again, it didn't make it to this video. Look, it's all dried up, but I've left it in there. I'm sure I can sort of pull it out, but I'm gonna leave it in there just for the memory, just for sentimental reasons. I want to leave it in there just to remind me of what was and what could be again. But I will include some videos, some footage here of this plant when I first discovered that it was blooming. A very random late night video. I was just looking at this plant. These are my Haworthias, and I was looking here and I noticed that this one has a little flower spike come in. But oh no, the plant doesn't just stop there. Looking around the plant, I can see a pup here, and I'm sure I can see another 1 or 2 here as well. There is so much activity on this plant, and it's finally, for the very first time, you know, I've always had this plant. I've just sort of, it's a set it and forget it plant. Hasn't really done a lot, but looks like summer 2024 is the one.
I'll keep an eye on this and see how they go, and I'll definitely be back with a proper update once these plants have grown large enough for them to be propagated and potted up into their own pots.
As I said, it wasn't the most spectacular bloom. It just looks very, very plain, but still very exciting to have that happen for the very first time. Again, as another side note, one thing I've noticed about this plant is that it is starting to pop like crazy. There are so many pups in this pot that I think I'm gonna have to look at how I upsize this thing very, very soon. I don't really want to. I want to keep it quite compact because space is not on my side here, and if I can keep it in this thing for as long as possible, then that would be great. I don't want to do that at the detriment of the plant, so we'll keep an eye on it, and if we need to repot it very, very soon, I will do that. Another consistent bloomer is this one right here. This is my string of hearts, and honestly, no matter the time of year, this plant never fails to produce blooms. Honestly, it can be winter, it could be the dead of winter, the coldest nights, the hottest summer days. This plant is always producing blooms. I just had to give it a shout out. This plant is just so incredible. It's just the most reliable bloomer. Again, these blooms don't last very long, probably about a week before they shrivel up and fall off, but there's always 3, 4 more to replace the one that falls off. Just such an incredible, incredible plant. Drum roll, please, because this is the main event. This is the pinnacle of flowering plants. There is no other plant in my collection that comes close to this. It's just so unique, it's so different, and it's none other than my Huernia Plowesii. Look at this flower. Tell me that is not an alien's mouth. Tell me that this is not the oddest thing that you've ever seen on a plant. This thing is insane. It is absolutely crazy. You would look at this and think it looks like plastic, right? And when you touch it, it feels like plastic. It honestly doesn't feel real. This thing is just the oddest looking flower in my collection. Oh my goodness. Look at it. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. And unlike my other succulents, this thing is still holding on. It's still holding strong. There was another bloom in here. I am sure of it. But yes, we had 2 flowers in there. The other one that came out was kind of squished up and it was all, you know, inside the pot. It didn't get to emerge properly. But this one managed to come out outside of the pot. So it looks really, really cool. A quick bit of research told me that this plant is similar to a sort of a corpse flower-ish type of thing, where it kind of resembles rotting flesh, and I can see why. That thing looks so weird, so gnarly, so just out of this world, really. And it does that to attract flies, and I think it also has a scent of rotting flesh a little bit. I can't smell anything, so again, it might be one of those things that only happens at night. It smells like nothing to me, but apparently it does that so that flies can come in where they will think that they can lay their eggs or the little maggots in here, and as they walk around they end up pollinating the plants. I'm happy to test that theory. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to do some more research. As I said, this is the very first time that this plant is blooming for me, and I think we're gonna have some more blooms. I'm not sure if these are the starting of blooms, but on a lot of these little nodes here or little bits here, you can see there's one here near my finger that appears to be a new bloom that might come out here. There's another one back there that might turn into a bloom. There's a couple. It could either be a bloom or more likely it's probably going to be another sort of section of this succulent. Just such a cool plant. Such a cool plant. I don't talk about this plant often because otherwise, without this flower, it just looks, you know, quite simple, quite plain, quite bland, some might say. I still quite enjoy it. I've seen some that the actual section of the succulent grows really, really long, and it could almost be like a cascading sort of vibe, but right now it's just very small, very compact. But when it produces flowers like this, I mean, damn, ooh, that is so odd, so weird. A couple of things that really attract me about a plant is its sort of grandeur, like, you know, big leaves, you know, a statement plant like your fiddle leaf figs or my anthuriums, big leaves, big glossy, furry, fluffy leaves that look really weird and wonderful. And just oddness, you know, a real oddity like this plant is just so weird, so different. It's like, oh, I don't know what to feel or think about you, but I want you in my collection. And this is what I did with this plant. Just such a weird and cool little plant. That oddball brought us to the end of the video today. Those are all of the plants that are flowering right now. I think I have a couple of anthuriums that are producing some inflorescences, but nothing special. They just look the same. So I didn't think I would bring them here. I didn't think it was worth it. But if you want to see that, let me know. And I could do another update for you, maybe in a short, to talk about that. But that's the end of the video. Let me know what plants you have in your collection that are flowering right now. Or tell me about some really odd flowers or odd plants that you want to add to your collection, because who knows, I might be getting one or two of them as well if I'm convinced. But thank you so much for watching. That was all, and as always, keep planting.